And good evening, my fellow Americans. Good evening to you all. You know, if it's Monday, if it's 8 p.m., it's a Robert Duverny show. I'd like to thank each and every one of you for logging in this evening. It's, of course, a great day in the month of May, May 23rd. It's a wonderful day to be at home. You know, if it's 8 p.m., if it's Monday, there's no other place to be at the Robert Duverny show. Well, tonight I'd like to give you a few seconds to call a colleague, let them know that the Robert Duverny show just turns on. And tonight we have a wonderful show for you. We have a lot on the menu. Again, this is the Monday preceding the Memorial Day. I'm sure most of you are going to have a long weekend coming up. Those of you in the education field, those of you who work for the government, and also all Americans deserve a Memorial Day to be off. I think that's a day that we all should reflect on the men and women who serve, and we pay tribute to those who paved the way, those who sacrificed their lives for our nations. And this is something that we cannot take for granted. And I think America is better because of people of your caliber. You know that we must celebrate those who fought the good battle. Again, I'm going to give you a few seconds to call a colleague. And I'm looking at the hours right now. It's 20:02, the Robert Duverny show. Well, what I have on the agenda for you this evening is, of course, the election. I know most of you have been watching the primary election in most states, particularly in the state of Georgia. Georgia is the one that stands out the most. As you all know, what happened the last November during the presidential election. The former President Donald Trump had called the Secretary of State of Georgia to give him a few votes. And so unfortunately that did not happen. Mr. Trump wasn't too happy. But I'm calling all of you to stay tuned, stay focused, and on a regular basis. As you know, this show comes on every Monday. At the Robert Duverny show, one thing that we do know for certain is that the Robert Duverny show is very impartial. We don't take any sides, and I'm sure that's a repetitive quote that we use on a regular basis, that we do not take sides of the political arena. We're here to be a big brother, be the bigger person in the room, to show you things how they are, and then at the end of the day, you make the ultimate decision by making the right decision in terms of who you vote for and educating you about the subject. I'd like to take this time to welcome a few of you who's already logged in. I'm looking at my screen right now. My good friend, Mr. Paul. Mr. Paul, thank you for logging in. I encourage you to call a friend or family. Let them know the Robert Duverny show is on. Well, you're intelligent young man. You know if it's at p.m., there's no other place to be at the Robert Duverny show. I'm sure you might be working out right now at the gym, but you're putting the weight aside and to turn on your show. I think that you're a very important young man. You have a great future. Again, I'd like to take this time to say kudos to Miss Bernadette Remy. It's unfortunate. I'm waiting for most of you guys to log in, but in the meantime, I'm having some questions. Mr. Paul just asked a question. How do I feel about the mass shooting that happened? Well, Mr. Paul, with all due respect, this is a common trend. We've seen in the last few years that mass shooting is more rampant than usual. We wonder what's at the bottom of it, what's at the core. Is it mental? Is it men who become radicalized over the years? Or is it the social media that we're using? Because right now everybody has a tablet in their hands on a regular basis, and they use that, and they tend to communicate, and everybody wants to be famous. So these are core issues that we must dissect, and at the same time go at the root cause of these events. What really happened a couple weeks ago in Buffalo, New York, it's disheartening. My heart goes out to the family who suffered this terrible loss. These are folks who've gone about their lives, who've gone about shopping. They were grandma, they were young people who actually went out to shop, and this is what they ended up, they getting shot and they were killed. In all honesty, I'm really upset about this whole thing, and I think our elected officials can do better. And they can do better by, they don't have to feel, well, in America, there's something that we enjoy, the freedom of the press. But the press has gone too far, and there's so much so-called press. I don't really call them press. You look at the cable news who are pushing an agenda, and when they push this agenda, they are young folks who cannot dissect what's going on. And right now we have a theory, which is, this is what's killing me right now, and they're not really at the core of the problem, but yet it's like putting gasoline into a fire that's already started. And the racial tension has always been on in America ever since they brought slaves here. Black people were in America since 1619, and we were the vehicle of this great nation that we serve. But now there's a theory out there, a replacement theory. There are those who believe that they're bringing blacks, Hispanics to replace the whites, and they feel like they're losing the power. And I think this is disenchanted. This is a false notion, and there are those who are fueling this idea. And I believe that we as Americans, we should call it as it is. This is a plan. This is wrong. And I will say it again. It's wrong, all caps. It is wrong. You don't replace the Electoral College by bringing new people. Well, the whole thing is I'm not going to call it even outlets by name, but I'm sure you, as a Robert Duverny show, those who watch the Robert Duverny show, I know how smart you are. That's the reason why you turn on every Monday at 8 o'clock to watch this show. And but we tend not to call any media outlet by name, but I'm sure you know who I'm referring to. There are those who make it the theme. I mean, this is something that they will speak about on a regular basis. They're only putting gas into a fire that's already enraging. So until we put a stop to this, until we call these shows, until we're boycotting these television shows, we're doing a disservice to our nation. We're doing a disservice to the people that we serve. I believe when we as Americans, we boycotting these stations, when we're boycotting those TV network, they have no other recourse but to stop the agenda. Well, I hope I did not delve into it too much for you. I'm sure that's something that we all feel threatened. As a matter of fact, just before I close this chapter, according to the latest poll that released just 2 weeks ago, African American residents feel they're threatened. They are in fear, and I think they're right to be fear for their lives. When you look at the voter suppression, when you look at housing, when you look at the criminal justice, now you're having radical young men, 18 years old, who was going to go around with an AR-15 to take people's lives, and that should be a concern. And that's the reason why we want more blacks to be involved politically. This is not a time for us to sit back and not doing so. I think there's a time that we elected officials. That's the reason why I encourage you to partake in this election coming up. That's the reason why we want to see more blacks at the Oval Office. We want to see more blacks at the state legislature. We want to see more black folks at the governor mansion. So these are the people who's going to make the difference. We want to see more blacks in the Electoral College, of course. We want to see more minorities involved. And that's the only time we're going to bring changes. And this is exactly what they're afraid of. Blacks only represent 13% of the population. 13% of the population. Now, if you think we're going to replace you, your math is wrong, sir. And then these are the things that we need to teach our people. Because I think when America does well, we all do well. That's what we should have in mind. All right. Thank you. On a different note right now, I'd like to welcome Professor Ambrose from Griffith County of Miami-Dade, who just logged in. Very smart professor here. Thank you for your hard work in the Miami-Dade Public School, sir. Keep up the good work. On a different note, I'd like to speak with you this afternoon, folks, is, of course, the criminal justice system. I think there's a level of hypocrisy that's been really at disadvantage to mostly minorities. There are companies, there are state legislature who actually make money off of that, and that's all they're doing. And one thing I'd like to, you need to take your home. Nobody's gonna fix your home. You fix your own home. So what do I mean by that? That's when we're educating our young people from home. Father's Day is coming up in the next 4 weeks. We're going to have Father's Day. After this Sunday, the month of June comes up and we're going to celebrate Father's Day. I want to see more fathers involved in their kids' education. Be involved in the home. And that's where the problem starts. And then what's happening right now, I encourage those of you who are watching the Robert Duverny Show to really take this notion at hand. It's important that we keep this at the forefront, that we play a role. Don't let the government teach our kids, even the school they go to. That's just why we need to involve. I've gone to some PTA meeting, and it's the parent, the dads are absent. Even in the church, the men are absent. There's a man issue. There's a man problem. And these are the core value that we need to instill in our community. And that's the only time we can tackle this issue. Well, tonight I'm calling all my men to stand firm and show your backbone. And I always tell my colleagues that just having the kids, just having kids does not make you a father. No. Does not make you a father. What makes you a father is your responsibility. Yes, that's what makes you a father. It's passing on the legacy to the next generation, to your offspring, as a matter of fact. And if you don't have any kids of your own, I think it's time that you mentor one. See, the greatest gift that we can leave to the next generation is to pass in something that is dear to us, something that we couldn't achieve to the next generation. I can give you a prime example. My parents always seen the best in me. And yet I've gone distances that they did not reach, but they wanted their offspring to reach that. Where I did not make it, I want you to go there. And that's exactly Dr. King spoke about in the 60s. That he dreamed of an America where his 4 little children will live in a society where they would not be judged by the color of the skin, but by the content of the character. Whoa, somebody, don't get me start preaching up in here. All right, let's stop right here. So these are the things that we need to instill in our people. That's the thing we need to instill in our young generation. Yes, good point, Mr. Paul. Responsibility in teaching and mentoring them the right way. Yes, I totally agree. Then that we require a level of concern, a level of wanting to leave something for the next generation. That's what we need to do. I like that. These are great points you bring it up tonight. And then this is what we need to do as a nation. Because if we take care of our own, this population take care of their own, we each doing our part. Guess what? At the end, we all do well. I love competition. The competition that we will tell our future generation at one time, we stood up for what was right. Let future generation teaches us. Let future generation, as a matter of fact, learn from what we've left them. That's what we need to go. And politicians, I should point that out to you, they come out every so often. Every 2 years, every 4 years, every 6 years. The Supreme Court, these guys are appointed, they are appointed for life. They don't have to run a campaign. But if they were, I don't know what it would be. Now, one thing I want you to keep in mind, that most of our politicians, they come to you every 2 years. And now every 2 years they come with a pacifier. You know the pacifier here. Those of you who are parents, and when a baby is crying, what you give them a pacifier, right? Until you get the milk. As you know, we just picking up pacifier, we would like to thank those who are working at the federal level, bringing out the formula milk to these babies, and we have a shortage. And I'm sure the latest I've heard from National Public Radio this morning is that there will be some openings, some plants that were closed. They will resume operating next month in the month of June. So all the mothers out there, the fathers out there, you got milk on the way. The government is working diligently to serve you. Well, speaking of this, Well, when we think about what at stake, I was talking about these politicians who comes to you and give you lip service. Yes, they. I mean, like I said, there's a quote that says, "Talk is cheap because it does not amount to anything." I can promise you the moon, but let's see how fast I get there. So these are the things that we need to hold these men accountable. Tonight I'm going to touch both parties and show you how they are, and based on the context I'm talking about to you tonight. Well, we look at the Democratic Party. Let me start with them because this is the party that who love to be loved. They love the attention. They love to involve in social issues. Nothing's wrong with that. Nothing's wrong with that. Social security is a social issue. Think about it. When Woodrow Wilson introduced Social Security, everybody thought it was, hey, this is communism. But guess what? This is somewhat of a saving account that in your older age, those of you did not have 401k, did not have any investment, the government tap into it and give you a little check every month. You cannot call that socialism, right? But it's called Social Security. But at first, when the idea was introduced, they call it socialism, and I think again they were wrong. Now, the politicians will do that. They will come to you, and because they somewhat don't think that your intellect is at the level of understanding the real issue. Why would a politician who've been in office for so long and made you so many promises, yet never deliver, but he comes to you 2 years later, or 4 years later, or 6 years later, and tell you the same quote-unquote crap, and then you buy into it, and you vote him again? Well, we don't hold him accountable because we're too busy doing other things. I understand that. But, and again, that's the reason why I don't want you to be bombarded with these commercials, because they're not relevant. All right, they're not relevant. And we need to hold these men truth. We need to hold them to the fire. Hold their feet to the fire until they deliver. And if they're not delivering, you need to vote them out. Vote them out. Now, the Democrats, I call them Democrats. Some call them demagogue, but we're not here to call them. But again, they are the champion of social issues. Nothing's wrong with that. But again, they spend so much time arguing their cases. They spend so much time looking for love. But at the end of the day, it doesn't pay dividends. While the other party, the Republican Party, you don't see them, and they stay on course. These are the guys who, they tell you they're going to do something, they're going to do it. If they tell you they're not going to vote with you, they're not going to vote for you, they're not going to budge. And they have a system in place that they do not budge. Because currently we have a Senate that has, there are three usual suspects. These are the only three we know would somewhat change camp when it comes to a vote. Lisa McCoskey from Alaska, Mitt Romney from Utah, and of course, what's her name again, from Maine, Susan Collins, of course. Those three, those three Republicans, they tend to vote with the other party on issues that they think is relevant. Now, what's important to me this evening is that while we fighting to be loved, to have control of the Senate, and yet these folks, they're building at the state level. Because one thing you need to understand, what affects us the most is what's happening at the state level. But right now, no one bothers about what's going on at the state level. That's what affected them the most. The federal government, they're at the very top. What they do reach to you, but then after that it tends to water down. But what's happening at the state level, that's what affects you immediately, head on. I'll give you a prime example. I live in the great state of Florida, the Sunshine State. This is a state, the governor mentioned is by Ron DeSantis, a Republican. It's fine. And he's going to win again. Well, actually, he's going to win again maybe for 2 years because it looks like he's gonna put his neck in the for the White House for 2024. That's for sure. Ron DeSantis is setting himself up to be a governor for 6 years, and then he's gonna win because the Democrats, they're too busy fighting social issues and want to be loved. These guys, they control the state legislature. They control the counties. They even control, guess what? If you at the head of the governor mentioned, guess what? You have the veto power, okay? In other words, the Senate and both the Senate and the House can present you a bill that you not approve of. And guess what? You can get rid of it. The strike of a pen. But guess what? They are in control. There we go. Dr. Hazel, isn't even breaking news. Dr. Hazel just logged in. It's been quite about 2 years I've not seen her logged in. But welcome back, Dr. Hazel, a great educator in the state of Georgia. Georgia is a hot topic these days, but welcome back, Dr. Hazel. Good to see you. Yes, they control the courts, Dr. Hazel. Good point. They do. Now, this is where most things happening. And guess what? Most of us, we don't even see those things. Guess what? This is where we're getting affected the most, at the court level. And just recently, the state of Florida just acquired another electoral college. In other words, state of Florida, a lot of politicians, they're going to be spending a lot of their time here. And guess what they did? They're so smart. And then it's always been like that for some time, because the state of Florida has always been, you're in the South, the winner takes all. The winner takes all. Florida, we had 29 electoral colleges. Right now we have 30. So in other words, all you need to do just win 16. That's it, you win. The 14 is yours automatically. So you got 30 electoral college in your pocket. So you're going to see a lot of politicians. It comes 2024, spending a lot of money. As always been, Florida is a swing state. But with what they've done recently on the last map, the last redistricting, Florida is going to be Republican all the way. That's for sure. It's unfortunate. But then again, the other party did not spend enough time doing grassroots movement. That's another thing that we lacked of. Democrats don't do grassroots movements. But guess what? These guys, they do. When they do, they hate it. And then they have all these superpowers, super PAC behind them. So this is where we make changes, folks. Now, if we ever want to see control for minorities to at least have a say in the system, I mean, this is where we need to start putting some sense. All right, put some money there and then do some good grassroots movement. And I don't think to just go ahead and encourage folks to vote on the eve of an election that will somewhat get them involved. But I believe that's something that needs to be done on a regular basis. I mean, all year long. I mean, 2 years. I mean, these guys who were in control of both the House of the Senate and the Representative, they've been at this thing for years. I mean, ever since 2010, this guy, we had the Tea Party movement. Now we're in 2022, 12 years later, and they had 3 Supreme Court. The last president just appointed 3 Supreme Court justices. Okay. Guess what? These guys, they're going to change the entire court system for generations. They're the majority. All right? So now, the voting system, they control that as well. If you look at, there's not too many driver license. The only way you can get an ID is at your DMV. And these things, I mean, those of you who live in the state of Florida, those lines are long. And most of you who work 2 jobs cannot afford to take the night off or take a day off to take care of these things. I mean, it's really problematic. All right. Good evening, my cousin Fanette Paul from the great county of Orlando here. Thank you for logging in. Good to see you online. You're making a great decision here to join in the Robert Duverny show this evening. I congratulate you. My regards to my auntie. Hope she feels better. Tell her I love her. And we stay tuned, we stand in prayer. All right, my fellow Americans. Yeah, so it's important that we do these things. And it's important that we keep these things at the forefront. That we educate our people. Educate the electors. Educate the voters. And that's one thing that we lack of. I mean, just coming 2 months and then bombarding folks with advertisement, it's not a recipe for success. It requires a grassroots movement that is all year round, and then knocking doors, and then having public forum, and create leaders within the community to go out there and teach these folks about issues that's at hand. And then unfortunately, the minority is always the one with the deficiency when it comes to issues of that magnitude, because the working environment that they're in is really a disadvantage. So tonight, I encourage you to stay tuned, stay focused on the issues that matters to us the most. And at the end of the day, when we are educated, when we know what issues are at stake for us the most, that's when we make decisions, and those decisions eventually pay dividends. And this is what we want. We don't want to fight. We don't want that, and we all Americans. I mean, but then again, you have to call it for what it is. And when you see wrong, you call it wrong. And you see right, call it right. It does not diminish you, does not take anything away from you. I think if we were to take the time and talk to our leaders, talk to our public officials, those we elected, they're working for you. You are their bosses. And why not call them for what it is? I think we can do better as a nation. I think the best days of America are still ahead of us. But only if we decide to go that route. Only if we think it's important that we must change course. And then we leave something for the next generation. The generation prior to us, they had it rough. Yes, they had it rough. And those of you who are descendant of slaves, you know things weren't as it is today. They had it rough. But they fought for their rights. And fortunately, there were some good men on their side who felt the need to change course. And now, the question has come back to us. What are we doing? What do we want to leave to the next generation? How do we want to be remembered? School shooting, mass shooting becomes so rampant. And your politicians give you lip service. We'll keep you in our prayers, our thoughts, you in our thoughts and prayers. Well, thoughts and prayers will not bring these people back to life, unfortunately. But you have an ultimate decision to make. You can change course. You can change your rhetoric. You can call those who harbor terrorists. So what happened 2 weeks ago in Buffalo, New York, was a domestic terrorist. Call it what it is. Well, I'm sure if it were a black man who did it, they would call it terrorist. If it were a Muslim or someone of other ethnic background, will be called terrorist. Well, why not call it what it is? That's domestic terrorist. I don't care who did it. You're black, white, Muslim, you did it, that's a terrorist act. Call it what it is. That's what call you men up about it. And take decision that would ultimately change this. Have these guys think about it twice. Well, this evening, ladies and gentlemen, before I leave you, I'd like to leave you with a quote from Eggman. It's a great quote. It said, "The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing." Well, tonight I call on the good men of America to do something. Do something to change the rhetoric. Do something to change the course that we have taken as a nation. And ultimately, we'll have a better and a brighter America. Until next time, my fellow Americans, I'm wishing you a happy weekend. I'm wishing you all a wonderful Memorial Day. I'm sure most of you will be barbecuing. Think of me as you barbecue. I love barbecue. And we wish to see you here next week at the same time for a topic alike. I'd like to say good evening to Dr. Israel one time. She just brought Democrats let Republicans define them, always on the defensive. Books, critical race theory, etc., non-important stuff. Absolutely right, Dr. Izzo. I could not agree with you more. I think we need to do better as Americans, and regardless of your party affiliation. But again, let's bring things in the fold that Dr. Izzo's killing me. That tells you she's been out for some time, man. Well, for Memorial Day, my wife will be making spaghetti. Outstanding. While you're making barbecue. But I guess I'll probably take a flight to Georgia and enjoy the barbecue with you and bring my wife along. How's that? Thank you all, my fellow Americans. Let's go Heat. Yeah. Those of you who be watching the Heat game, I'm cutting the show a little early today. It's 8:31, 20:31. It's time for you to go watch the Heat. Hopefully the Heat go ahead and win a game tonight and then make it 3-1 and bring the championship down here in Florida. Again, until next time, my fellow Americans, have a lovely evening. If it's Monday, if it's 8 p.m., it's the Robert Duverny Show. Have a good night. Thank you.